shame and embarrassment, especially for the ladies, because marriage often is a status symbol. Hi, it's Stendai. Welcome back to my channel. So on today's episode 1 of the Divorce Diaries, we're going to be going into me opening up about the process when, or at least the start of the process of my divorce. Also, some of the lessons that I learned the hard way, and hoping that if somebody is looking for information that is specifically faith-based, then you've come to the right place. As I was looking for something like that, I also was hoping to find information about growing through this season of my life. And this information would be for anyone, whether you are a single lady or man, whether you are married, whether you are also divorced and starting over. Some of it for the singles and the married. Hopefully, this would prevent you from going through this heart-wrenching road, if you can avoid it. Let's dive into it. So on the 23rd of January 2023, that's when I received my divorce decree. And before that, this was my thought process. I thought to myself, when I get my divorce decree, I'm going to have a party. I'm going to have a divorce party. I'm going to celebrate. This was really tough. This was really hard. But actually, the reality was opposite to that of a person who wanted to party. So before the divorce process, I don't know, something in me just felt that like I needed to save money. So I was saving money, but if you had asked me at that time when I was saving money between the year 2021, 2022, I wouldn't have been able to tell you why I was saving that money. But I was saving money. So for any woman, if I speak this specifically for any woman, when they say that you've got to have your own money, they mean it. But obviously, it's not really always for you to find an exit plan. But unfortunately, life sometimes doesn't go according to plan. And things sometimes do not go according to what you have wanted them to go. There's always failures in life. A lot of the times we learn from those mistakes. We learn to pick ourselves up from a fall. People fail in businesses all the time. People fail exams all the time. People fail in so many things. Now, I know that some people will probably say that, oh, I don't want to fail in marriage because that's the biggest decision that I want to make. And granted, that is a very fair point, because really, when you are a Christian, marriage is till death do you part. That's what the Bible says. When you get married, it's till death. But unfortunately, sometimes it just doesn't work out to be that exit plan of you living happily ever after does not always work out. So for me, when 2021, in fact, 2022 was probably the pinnacle of how things started to shape up. And for the purpose of my children, I want to say out a disclaimer. I'm not going to say the exact details. All I can say is that the divorce was a culmination of things. It wasn't one particular. So if I can just go back historically through my marriage. So I was married for 16 years. I got married in 2006. That's when I had my white wedding and church wedding. But actually, coming from Zimbabwe in Southern Africa, you are married customary if you once your dowry is paid. So I would say about 18 years I was married, right? The moment that your dowry is paid and the families introduce each other and there's the exchange of the dowry, you are now considered Mrs. So and so, right? My so and so. So the wedding coming is a it's sort of a legal or a religious part of the process of marriage, right? But officially, I was married for 16 years, and after that, it was really growing together. I was 25, he was 29. We grew up together and we started our life together. We had children, And life just happened, and so many things happened that could have been done better. We did everything possible, going through counseling, pastors, and I was a Catholic. He was a pastor's son. In fact, my ex-husband was quite the preaching man back in his heyday, even before I met him. So when we're talking about finding a God-fearing man, tick. We were talking about finding a man that introduces you to God or certain things about God, tick. And we started off going to church. There was a time when we both served in a church that we were going to. So from a Christian point of view, I think I could say that we ticked most boxes, even though I wasn't a first lady and he wasn't a pastor, but we were people that went to church. And that was the foundation. It's really important that I mention that, because from a Christian background, these were the things that I could hear, right? God hates divorce. And wise woman builds her own home, but with her own hands, she destroys it. Or submit. These were the constant things. Or sometimes I would go for advice and I would hear these kinds of things. Marriage is hard. Pray. Fight on your knees. Do whatever you must do. Pray. If you brought any issues to the forefront and you want to talk about it and you wanted to express them, it was constantly always pray about it. Pray. Things will get better. Pray. But what if things are not getting better? Following from the divorce, most of the advice that I was getting was that once you are divorced, get yourself out there, start dating, um start going out, and all of those things, which to some extent they were sort of against my principles and what I wanted to achieve. I wanted to grow through this painful and difficult experience. And when I started to really get into it, I started to fully understand why God hated and hates divorce, right? And I started to really go a little bit deeper, especially from a spiritual point of view. But at the very same time, I didn't want to over spiritualize everything. But I'm going to give you a few things that I did that I had to learn the hard way. Number one, I was listening to everybody and not taking time to accept what was happening. The first thing that I needed to do was to accept what was happening and to accept the new life that I was embarking on. And with that, often people will say, oh, you deserve to be loved, get yourself out there, find somebody, and so on. But it's almost like you are putting a band aid over a wound that really needs treating properly, right? You're not actually dealing with the grassroots. You're not dealing with what really needs to be dealt with. So I listened to people. Whilst that is not a bad thing, because people um, that I believe in the social capital. Right? I really do believe in Ubuntu and community. It's really important that you have a support network, especially when you're going through good things happening in your life or bad things happening in your life. I always find that people are always willing and ready to listen to a wedding story or how we met kind of story. But when it comes to divorce, it's often very limited information out there, because ultimately the emotions that you're going through, especially the heightened emotions, are of shame, embarrassment, and betrayal, deception, all of those. It all depends on what exactly went on to in your marriage to cause that divorce. But shame and embarrassment, especially for the ladies, because marriage often is a status symbol. Marriage is a protective symbol. You have a sense of respectability when you're married, and suddenly everyone sees you with this person and they get used to you and that person being you and that person, and now you're not you and that person. So it's quite embarrassing, and it's quite often um, shameful. You feel sense of shame when this ends. So often in as much as you are listening to people, you always find that you are very much slowly ready to isolate yourself so that you can deal. So it's like you almost automatically go into a wilderness period where you've got to be at one with your maker and deal with this thing that is happening. It's like a ton of bricks have fallen on you, right? That's the first thing that I felt was a little bit not helpful. I would say a little bit, about 30%, 70% was helpful because you do need support. Number two, I think often you can listen to some stories and your story will be different. You might listen to certain divorce stories that will tell you that it takes years for things to be settled, like the paperwork, the application, going to lawyers and whatever. But your story is different. For me, it took 9 months for the divorce process to go through. It was very quick, and because it was an amicable um, divorce, it really wasn't as bloody as it was for other people, right? So, whilst that is necessary to listen to how other people process their divorce, it's really important that you take on your journey as your own personal journey, just like you would do anything like in life, right? Your processes, your journey would be specifically for you, specifically for you. And the third thing is I plunged myself into fitness, activities and things like that. And very quickly, I crashed when toll caught up with me. And with that, I truly, because I work in the line where I see people coming in as a nurse, people coming in looking for treatment, and sometimes divorce can really cause an emotional toll on people that they would really struggle to cope with this new found change. So the first thing was listening to people when it came to how I should deal with it. Number two, listening to advice like fear mongering advice. Number three, it was jumping straight into a lot of things all at once. I ended up crashing and burning. I got burnt out, and it's really imperative that you take each day as it comes, because it really it really is a different kind of difficult process. It's different kind of difficult situation. So this then leads me to the part where it says God hates divorce. So why does God hate divorce? Because when you go into that Malachi chapter 2, God is talking about how a man has his wife of his youth. This was at the time when men were divorcing their wives for anything. If they wake up in the morning, they decide they don't like your face, maybe you've got wrinkles and they want a younger one, they would divorce you. There was no major grounds for divorce. Anything would anything when it was a good enough reason. Jesus came and he sort of made that definition, distinctive definition, that in infidelity, yes, and so on. But in that time, God was saying that you're breaking your covenant, your marriage covenant with the wife of your youth through being adulterous. You are being cruel to your wife when you do that. Because the truth is, why God hates divorce is because the pain that comes afterwards, where you have to rebuild yourself, where you have to pick up the pieces off of the floor following this really terrible, tough time. I don't think God would like to see his children suffering in that manner. For the second reason is God hates divorce because he never designed it. It was Moses who got fed up. Moses got fed up with the children of Israel when they were in the wilderness fighting, and he said, "You men give a wife a certificate and send her off on her way." So was you. This was not God. This was used to just keep the peace. Moses was like, I'm fed up of you guys just whinging, bickering, complaining. Just give each other a divorce decree and just keep it moving. Keep it moving. I'm tired. I can understand, because that journey was only supposed to be 11-day journey. It was supposed to be short. The wilderness is supposed to be a through road. It's supposed to be short. The fact that they ended up being there for a long time meant that they got frustrated, their hearts got hardened. And often, this is one of the major causes of divorce because your heart gets hardened. No matter what, this is what I've realized, that when you start to feel resentment, when your heart gets hardened, even the person that used to look like, like Aaron Pierre, right? That's Mufasa. They will look like, I don't know, a hyena to you because your heart hardens. That so called in love, or I love this person, I care about this person, is, you have a heart of stone when you're in that state. And so, understandably, I started to fully understand where this whole process came from in the Old Testament and coming into the New Testament, and putting it into my life and understanding exactly how that translated for my own sake and my own story. Lastly, as a parent, and if you're the one who has custody of the children majority of the time, and even if you don't have custody of the children majority of the time, something I've learned is to make sure that you do shoulder some of the emotional burden for the children, because they too are going through the divorce. They're going through the most. But children, obviously, in as much as they are resilient, they struggle to articulate how they feel. And sometimes, having an open door policy for them to come and talk to you about things and ask questions and answer them with age appropriate answers. Not you going, oh, I hate your dad, blah, blah, blah. It really makes it very difficult, because then the children start to feel that they have to choose between mom or dad. And naturally, they feel that way anyway, but you have to keep reassuring them. And then you also have to try and keep normality, a sense of normality, and not change the environment if you can. There's situations where maybe if there's abuse, maybe if there's protection, where you cannot avoid the change or the move. That is obviously a different scenario. So whilst everyone's situation is different, I often just want to just make sure that at least the children are protected in as much as possible. And if you found this content really useful, helpful, press the subscribe button. You know what to do. Hit the notification button so that you know when I'm posting the next video, and share this with somebody who needs to hear it. If this is a wedding season for somebody, come back for the next video.